Thank you ever so much. What a lovely introduction. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you ever so much for taking the time as well. This is a topic which is extremely near and dear to my heart. It's something that I've expended most of my career within, and I hope that you will learn at least one or two things from the session that I'm about to, some of the topics that we're about to cover here. I won't sit on the fence. I'll make a few predictions. I'll hopefully engage you as well in some of the topics that you care most about by covering what I see as many trends within the wealth management industry that actually need to be addressed. What I'm about to say is that wealth management is undergoing a revolution. And I'm not one, if anyone knows me here, I'm not one to exaggerate my words. I would normally play that down. But what I see is this confluence of a number of different factors which altogether mean that I believe that if you fast forward 10 or certainly 20 years' time, you'll barely recognize wealth as it was now. And so we'll talk about why that is. But I also want to start by saying that because I'm in my 40s, I remember Avril Lavigne. I don't know if anyone else remembers Avril Lavigne. Yep, thank you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so does anyone remember the song, Why Did You Have to Make Everything So Complicated? Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell how I feel about the wealth management industry right now. But the good news is that, together with technology, with our creative capacity, with the support of a number of different stakeholders, and I think a lot of energy that is going into this sector right now, I think there's a huge opportunity, and we're really just at the cusp of beginning to realize it. So consider this base number one, and we're going to have a few different stages along this journey as we progress towards realizing some of these ambitions. So before I take it towards some of the topics that I think are the main topics for today, just a little bit about me. So 25 years in the finance industry, 20 years in finance, and in that last 25 years in finance, 25 years in wealth management, and during that time I've been running, doing a number of roles, C-suite roles. I was the Chief Innovation Officer for a Fortune 50 company. So in that role, it was my responsibility to understand all that was technology that could be implemented in favor of clients, in favor of the operating model, in favor of risk and control. At the same time, I also had another role, which was the investment lab. The investment lab was a unit dedicated to providing investment strategy, asset allocation thinking to ultra-high net worth investors. So I had the pleasure of running a team globally and visiting clients from around the world and talking and discussing with them some of the challenges that they were facing as it related to their approach to investing. So with that knowledge, as I left my former company, I thought about my next step and decided that I wanted to not only continue to be in wealth management, but continue to support families directly to manage their wealth. So I became a CIO in a family office. And secondly, I set up a company called Lightbox Wealth. And Lightbox Wealth is a wealth technology company. So we're providing solutions to those that manage investment wealth in their offices. So our solutions are primarily directed at family offices, but also at wealth boutiques and some trustees as well. So, but that's really not why I'm here. I'm here to talk about wealth management as a whole and some of the opportunities and challenges ahead. So, I presume before I start, how many people in this room are from the wealth management industry? Okay, so not so many. Well, maybe you can assist me on some of these points as well. But the first point I'd like to make is that there is something quite extraordinary going on in the wealth management industry. It's called the Great Wealth Transfer. So the industry as a whole is estimated to have a value in money terms of just under $500 trillion. That includes real estate, cash, some leverage included within there. So that's the totality. When you talk about investable assets, AUM, we're talking about an industry that's worth around 150 trillion. It's just shy of that now. It should get to close to there in the next 3 or 4 years. So it's a vast industry. It goes from sovereign wealth funds, endowments and foundations, all the way through to those that have little means, actually, 10,000 or less. And then within there, you have a number of different actors. So you have wealth managers, typically those that are supporting the investment activities of the mass affluent, those between 100,000 and 1 million of investable assets. And then you have those wealth managers stroke private banks that go from the 1 million mark upwards. So you may hear about ultra high net worth individuals, those with $30 million and above in investable assets, normally around there. And then those which are high net worth, somewhere between 1 and 30. So although the value proposition varies according to whether you are in the ultra camp, the high net worth camp, if you are in the mass affluent or lower down that pyramid, as would be most people in the world population, this is fundamentally wealth management. And what is happening, which I mentioned at the very beginning, the great wealth transfer, is an enormous transfer. It's estimated at about $18 trillion is being passed from the generation now, which are primarily the baby boomers, being passed down one generation. So, and that's happening in the next 5 years. So you've got this enormous wealth transfer happening. Now you're thinking $18 trillion is a lot of money. Well, let me shock you a little bit more. It's about just shy of $150 trillion, which is expected to move in the next 20 years. So it's the largest intergenerational wealth transfer that we are seeing, that we've ever seen. And why is that actually important? The number's big, but why is it important? It's actually important because if you are in business and your business somehow relates to those that manage money or those that own the money, what typically happens as you get that intergenerational shift is that people start looking for other providers. I don't know if any of you experienced that when your father passed some money to you and you looked at your father and said, I'm going to do it differently. That was me. That's no different than what the surveys tell us. Somewhere close to 75% of those that receive money will look at other providers. So it's a stunning statistic. So that's a great opportunity if you are, seeking to make inroads with that wealth. At the same time, though, it's a concern, it's a risk if you are currently a provider to the prior generation. So there's a lot of intra-wealth planning that is going on around the globe in order to ensure that passage is transitioned smoothly. There are a number of other points I wanted to highlight on here, but I also thought I'd talk about women and the role that women are playing in wealth management. So women today, according to, again, surveys, manage somewhere between 30 and 35% of wealth, which is already significantly up on just a few years ago. That number is expected to be more than a half by 2030 as well. So that's also an important generational transfer that's happening in the way that money is run. Now, in the same way as no two men are the same, no two women are the same, and therefore I'm going to avoid the generics that often come out at this point in conversations, but there are some notable differences in how women as an overall manage money compared to men, and that is something that is an important point that needs to be addressed through any providers into the ultra high net worth segment as well. Technology is, of course, one of the reasons why we're here. I was at CogX yesterday, and we were talking about the impact that AI is expected to have. AI is everywhere. AI will affect everything. AI will affect every one of us. And so you won't be surprised, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the applications of AI to hear that AI is going to have the most profound effect on wealth management, but it is also not for me here to say that we have seen anything yet like what we're about to see. I think there are some very significant changes that we're about to see. I've implemented AI for the last 15 years in very large and complex and global environments. I've used a lot of machine learning. But what I've seen now with the combination of machine learning, with some of the Gen AI retrieval, summarization, augmentation capabilities, with a full loop back, with full with some of the added advantages of being more dynamic, I don't think we've seen anything yet. I think this is a very, very significant moment for wealth, and I'll explain why that is. I'm happy to talk about any of those things. Sustainability is now, for family offices, the most important sustainability is now a feature of every dialogue with family offices. And in terms of the prioritization that family offices, those are institutions running on behalf of some of the wealthiest families in the world, they are saying that climate change is the #1 concern globally. Over the next 5 years, it's the #1 concern. So what has been commitments, I would expect over the next few years to also turn into very significant actions. And I think that will be another area, if you're in the investment technology area supporting wealth management, that will become increasingly important. It's not just the ability to assess prior to an investment, it's the ability ongoing to manage for those as well. So here are some of the factors impacting that I think are driving a revolution. But let me put this in something which is extremely complicated, but I just want you to look at it in the most simple way. You have right now this concurrence of events happening. You have existing processes that are taking place in wealth management. You have platforms that are changing every day to meet the needs and the ever-demanding needs of clients. And you also have the products that are evolving. And finally, you have the technology that is evolving. So what I call this the wheel of disruption. Okay, so here are some services that you would typically associate with wealth management. So everything from investment management through to lending, through to asset management, financial planning. These are staples of the of the wealth management industry. But look at what's happening to them. They're being impacted by, every single one of those is being impacted by AI, by data and the importance of data, cloud, the tokenization. There are significant amounts of change that are happening. Now, if that's stating the obvious, now let's make it micro for a second. So I am now I'm now a VC, and I'm attempting to make an investment on behalf of a client, and I have to follow a process. So my process needs to firstly identify with the vision and strategy of the firm that I'm investing into. I need to validate that business model. I need to ensure that the solution itself that is being proposed has been validated in terms of scalability and the ability to provide that on an ongoing basis. Is the delivery model in place? Do we have the necessary controls in place? Are the team the appropriate team to fulfill this goal? Do we have an exit strategy? Is there a direction and pace of travel that will get us to where we need to? So that suddenly became very complicated, and that was for one single set of processes, just that. And I just covered how all of those technologies together are impacting the wealth management industry. So we truly have something here which is not absolute, it's relative, but it's relative and it's being added onto all of the time. Here are some AI use cases that I've seen in wealth, and there are so many of these. I think probably these days I should prepare a slide called which areas have not been impacted by AI in some capacity. But I think the first point I'd make is that wealth management is a trust business. All of us are very protective of wealth that we have, rightly so. It's quite an emotive topic, wealth, as well. There can be more than one stakeholder. It may be your husband or your wife. It may be your family. It may be intergenerational. There could be some trustees. There may be some fiduciaries. There's going to be a lot of different stakeholders in the management of wealth. So bear in mind that this rapidly becomes, there are multiple layers and beneficiaries which can expect to be using AI. But if you're a portfolio manager and you're running wealth today, you have a number of AI tools that you can use. Summarization of research reports, there are a lot of those. You can use sentiment analysis applied over a series of reports to see how sentiment is changing on a particular stock or a market. If you're in the research provision area, you may even be using AI to generate research, or at least to embellish or improve the types of data points that you're using to support your arguments. You may also be using it to understand how your view differs from others in the marketplace as well. These types of things, they took days. They took armies of people to do that. In fact, most people didn't do it. What you ended up doing was that you said, I only would like to read 5 people that I really trust and I listen to every month. But what about if those 5 people did not call the change in Chinese policy 3 weeks ago? That's 20% stock performance that's just happened. And you may not have been listening to the right people. So a logical response, but with an irrational outcome. So, I think if you're in HR, talent management, screening, understanding how to avoid biases in some of the interviewing processes is another very good use case for AI. If you're trying to understand risk and control surveillance, which again is so critical in the wealth management business, this is an area that is extremely ripe for AI as well. Spotting anomalies, detecting changes in behavior, trying to minimize some of the anomalies that you would detect in the day-to-day processes. So here are a few predictions. I know we're going to run out of time very quickly, but I think just to give you some very specific predictions that I'm making. So today we live in a supply world. A lot of information comes to those with capital. Too much information. It's very overbearing. It's very overwhelming. I can promise you that as a CIO. You receive a lot of strategy views. You receive a lot of product views. You receive a lot of everything. And of course, you only have so many hours in the day. And there is an answer, which is you could add more people. But as an institution, you have to be careful about how many people you add and whether you get the benefit associated with that. So the way I think about it is that AI is going to provide us not just with an audit, it's going to provide us with a historical lineage, how views have changed over time. So it won't only be about the view of the CIO today or how the view of that CIO differs from everybody else today. It will be about a historical audit of what it was that made you make a decision. What were the triggers? What were the factors? Where did that strategy come from? And then you'll be able to go forward over time and see exactly how that happened. Now, if you're into blockchain, as I am also, you'll soon realize that there's a value transfer there that is in information terms, not just in currency or value terms. So I think there's a natural application for this here. But this is an area that I fully expect will just go away as a problem. It will still be a problem in the sense that there will still be an awful lot of information out there, but it will be now more easily digestible, and you'll be able to look at the information that you are seeking, understand where the outliers are, and move on. There's a great HBR report which talks about the 10 principles of effective organization. And the first one is to seek for your teams in a complex organization to work together, to cooperate. Less people looking out for themselves, more people marching in the same direction and supporting one another. I don't think I think this is a little bit demoted now because AI is lateral. AI doesn't think as we think. We thought, like Adam Smith, that it was a great way to separate ourselves into very specific skill sets and areas. AI doesn't have that boundary. No one's told it that it has to stop. So you can effectively take one decision. I'll show you this very complicated chart. Think of this as a periodic table with all the elements of wealth management. I'm sure there are others that I'm missing. But these are all factors that go into one decision. One decision. All different factors. Now, the way that banks, wealth managers, family offices, asset managers, they divide these into areas because we have skills. What the arrows are pointing to, though, and actually these are just two examples, is that when you make a decision that is related to investment strategy, it has a very profound effect upon your jurisdictional planning, has a very profound effect upon taxable or non-taxable status of those investments. It has an impact upon the will of the family. It has an impact. And so this complexity today is being managed largely in I would say, a very fragmented process. And it's complex, and it takes a lot of people. And guess what? Not everyone gets involved at the right time. And lots of people feel frustrated because the information hasn't reached them at the speed at which they need to. So I think we're going to have better connected teams, better connected people, but it may not be because of the behavior of people. It may actually be because we receive, in a workflow sense, a series of actions and activities that are taking place elsewhere in the organization that we need to respond to. So that's another prediction that I'm making. It will be less upon us, but it will be a part of our everyday workflow. This is unsustainable. I mean, and I'm contributing to this problem, so don't for a second think I'm sitting here as some kind of... There are over 650 companies that are startups in the wealth tech industry, and they're covering a wide variety of areas, and many of them are operating to solve very important problems. These are not problems seeking a solution, or is it the other way around? These are real problems. However, if you're using them, you're adding to a more fragmented, disparate, disconnected workflow. And the challenge is that as you become familiar with one, you are becoming less familiar with another, and often there is no integration along the line in terms of the technology that is being used. So a more seamless, more integrated, more easily integrated ecosystem that will inevitably mean a lot of consolidation is going to happen. There's a lot of consolidation happening in wealth management, full stop. But there will be a lot of consolidation happening in the technology ecosystem, which is a good thing for those that are part of it. But at the same time, I think this will make for a richer, better wealth management experience for those that are actually running the wealth or those that are playing a part in that. I know I'm running out of time here, so I thought I could talk a little bit about another prediction. So client centricity means so much more than filling out something called an investment objective setting form. People call them different things, where you have to go through a profiling, you tick a few boxes, it says this person doesn't allow this, doesn't like this, does want this, does have experience with this, is a professional per se, is not a professional per se. There's a whole set of criteria that will enable there to be an audit of why certain things were recommended to you, why certain things were not recommended to you. This doesn't make sense for multiple reasons. Firstly, the person listening to your form may be different, maybe thinking differently than the person completing the form. That's one inevitable issue. But it also doesn't make sense because you are not static, all of you. You every day, markets move, you are responsive to different pieces of information, you have different influences around you, you read different things, your circumstances are changing. And all of that, therefore, can be thought of as a dynamic form of understanding what might be or may not be appropriate for you in that sense. So I think in the future, a variability assessment is going to become, meaning how your tolerance or how your investment objectives or how your investment behaviors or how any of your behaviors actually are going to be understood and reacted to is not going to be seen as a static one-time exercise with some annual reviews. It will be something that will become a lot more dynamic. I have a daughter. I have a son as well, but it's not relevant for the story. My daughter, I play with AI a lot at home. I'm a bit of a geek, but you know, I've discovered the ability to create videos on topics that interest my children, and I've used that to, as a father should, I guess, to encourage my children to show intellectual curiosity on certain things. So rather than I go to YouTube on my television and say, let daddy pick something that he thinks is appropriate for you, because there's a lot of inappropriate things out there. How about you tell me what you would like to learn about? And you know, so last weekend, my daughter said, I'd like to learn about the history of pasta making. I think she just had a pasta dish. I don't, maybe that was it. But within a minute, there was a video about the history of pasta making. Now, you may be thinking, where is he going with this? Well, what I'm trying to say is that you've been in this world of supply, where a lot of information is coming to you, and you're reacting to it. How about a world where you're thinking about things all of the time, but you now have the ability to go and extract, augment, and help you in your decisioning processes at that point in time? And then from there, how will all of the other actors that currently support you be present to support that? So I think we're going to see a rotation in terms of what we mean by client centricity, more towards the client themselves and away from the sources of supply. I think supply will have to respond very dramatically and quickly to those things as well. I know we're running out of time, so I mean, can I just see, am I meant to cut it here, or I'm okay? I've got to the control section, so I know that everyone will probably want me to switch off here anyway. I've never taken anything but a constructive view on regulation. I know that some people would argue that some regulation is burdensome, it's costly, it adds to process. I understand that. But regulation isn't for the purpose of regulation. I mean, regulation is a response, typically, to something that is seen as a risk to the system. It's a vulnerability, it's a concern, it's seeking to protect a broader, whether that's a set of clients or a set of companies or the system more generally. But of course, the regulatory burden has increased substantially. I mean, when I started back in the 90s, I'm not sure that my regulatory training would have taken more than maybe 5 hours in a year. I can tell you that leaving the large Fortune 50 company, that I was doing considerably more training around regs than that, considerably. And these are just a list of them. Now, why have I just listed, in a very boring way, lots of controls? It's because of the point I made earlier about the disconnection, the connectivity problems that exist today between sources of regulation. I was in Dubai recently conducting a training for central bankers, and we were talking about the VARA, which is the digital asset regulation in Dubai, and we were seeking to compare that with other regulations around the world with that purport to cover that same area. And it was something very eye-opening for the regulators, that they could very quickly, for central bankers and regulators, they could see very quickly where there were differences between two regulations covering the same area. What's more, they could even augment their existing regulation using some of the ideas from the existing regulation. So in that sense, I think the wealth tech industry, one of the strongest responses and contributions it can make into wealth management is to find a way for all actors to understand their roles, and understand their roles at a particular moment in time. And that is here. You can do that right now. You can, your company needs to be set up to do that, but the regulations themselves are there. They are normally available. I mean, that's the purpose, to be available. And then from there, you can understand what your purpose is meant to, what you are meant to do at that particular moment in time. And I'm saying you, I mean you, it could be the machine that supports you, it could be you yourself, but it doesn't need to be disconnected. And one regulation and another regulation may not always be aligned. So you need to understand the vulnerabilities and the risks that exist between two paths as well. I've got a lot of stories about this, but I think the combo of AI and blockchain actually are going to make this whole space a lot more manageable. And I hope that sounds like good news, because it is meant to be good news. It's a big space, and I think everybody out there who's making rules and regulations wishes for them to be implemented, but not to also to interfere unnecessarily. And I think technology will gap that challenge. All right, look, I'm going to end there, I think. You've all been great listeners. I hope that there was something in there that interested you. I have about -2 minutes on the clock. I'm not sure what the process is now. Is it to ask questions or to just wrap up there?
We can have questions. Any questions? I will run to you in my heels.
Thanks, that was super interesting. All this technology, particularly the AI stuff, is going to enable different players. And do you think that the advantages will accrue to the sort of the Jane Streets and the Bridgewaters of the world, or do you think it'll accrue to those looking more directly after people's money, such as wealth managers?
Oh gosh, that's a very, very good question. It's not to cop out from the question, because it's a good question, and I'm sure when we look back, it will be clear that one or the other has benefited the most from that. What I am seeing, which would concern me if I were the CEO of any of those companies, or indeed others, is the difference in the velocity and the speed of the deployment of the technology. And so, you know, there's nothing wrong with legacy practices and legacy processes, but there is no reason not to open your eyes and think about a faster, more efficient, a better way to augment them, so that you can be, maybe you can receive information faster, process information faster, you can receive different types of information. You can query some of the quality of the information that was originally being provided in an RFP. I mean, these are things that with the human eye, and like I said, with a set of hands, it's a lot of work. And so, you know, I think that's probably how I'd answer that question, by saying that within sectors or within categories of wealth managers, I fully expect that you'll begin to see quite large divergences. Now, at the same time, the analyst community is really picking up on this. And so you see, for example, CEOs now being asked at Investor Day, what is your process to incorporate emerging technology? It's becoming a more standard question. But just a few years ago, that wasn't a standard question. The problem that they've got is that there are sentiment analysis generated by AI is picking up that they don't really have a plan. When they speak and they respond, they say, yes, we've got a plan, but it's saying you may not, this CEO may not have a plan. So it's quite important, I think, to take it down to the micro to answer questions like that.
One last question.
One of the most promising avenues for AI is in the area of quote-unquote light guidance. Just wanted to get your views as to some of the different approaches that have been used. I mean, obviously it started many moons ago with Nutmeg in 2014, but obviously with the FCA's paper coming out, I think the beginning of last year, not really a lot has been done other than a few goal optimization tools. So where do you see the future of light guidance?
Yeah, great question. I think the pace of change will require a more prescriptive approach. And the only reason I think that is because of the increasing likelihood of events occurring that could have a very systemically important effect. Now, we've already seen that to a degree with deep fakes, with those that, maybe more vulnerable communities, those which are time deficient, they're reacting very quickly to information that may not always be the best or even the correct information. So I think that the principle-based approach which is essentially a continuum of what has been our main approach to all manner of risks, is ensuring that that those principles and all of the actors are clear about about where the boundaries are. But I do think that we are going to see scenarios. You just have to look at the US election right now to see, how many attempts are being made to defraud democracy. Taylor Swift apparently is a very big Trump supporter this week. This in a wealth management sense is very concerning because of the point that I raised earlier about people's tolerance to poor or incorrect, inaccurate information for the wealth that they have is very low. And so any actor who wishes to do and add value to those that are managing wealth needs to understand that their responsibilities towards the accuracy, the accessibility of the advice that they are giving. Otherwise, it may be difficult for them to come back.
Fantastic. All right, could we get a warm round of applause for Phil Watson?
Thank you. Thank you ever so much, everyone. Thank you.